everyone. Welcome back to our discussions with industry leaders. Today, we have with us Mr. Sundara Sukavanam. He's the Chief Digital Officer for Firstsource and joining us for a very, very interesting conversation. Thank you so much, Sundara, for joining us.
Sure. Thank you, Sukanya. Glad to be here.
Yes. And we are having a very interesting chat today. And it's on intelligent automation and how data and AI has really changed that landscape. Now, to begin with, Sundara, just for context setting, automation is nothing new. I think we've been hearing about automation for so many years. But now there is this word called intelligent automation. And there's also a talk about AI being key to automation. Help us understand how these two things, how automation is really different from intelligent automation, and what difference has AI made in that, taking this step jump.
Sure. Automation has been around, right? As you said, forever, right? I mean, it some decades back, it was just implementation of technology to streamline business processes. But over the last maybe 5, 6, 7 years, some of the new age technologies have made it easier to mimic human behavior, right? And that's what was called as robotic process automation. And today, when somebody says automation, they actually talk about RPA, right? It is essentially, if the human does ABC, can I have the bot do ABC? There's no deep thinking going into what A, B, and C should be. That, in a sense, is automation, right? And a lot of platforms have come in that can do that really well. Easy to code, easy to understand the steps a human is taking, and so on and so forth. But where the evolution has taken it to the next level is, can I understand a little bit more about the judgment that goes behind a certain action, right? And that's where the intelligence comes into automation. If I'm looking at a document and I'm able to figure out that within this document, I need to pick up, it's a claims form, I need to pick up the name, the member ID, XYZ, then it's simple, right? But if I have to have some kind of technology do that, then there has to be understanding the context, understanding the place within the document where I go and pick up this data, right? That's where intelligence comes in. That's one example. The second example is, I look at a lot of data and then I decide that, this is the answer to that, right? There's judgment. It could be about, I'm trying to collect money from somebody and I have to give him some options, that person, some options for payments. Can I do analysis and can machine models suggest to me that this person is capable of paying this $3,000 in one shot, right? So the model suggests that give him that option. Don't give him other options because you want to help him clear the debt. So I think when AI in the form of machine learning or NLP in the form of natural language processing or other kinds of technology that help the streamlined automation run more with judgment and with ability to predict, then it becomes intelligent automation. That's essentially the difference, if it helps.
Nice. I think very well explained. And I'm sure tomorrow we will have different versions of it, which would be called super intelligent or something else. And as technology evolves, I think what we call as baseline for ourselves will also evolve in terms of, and it'll just be automation, what we do today right now. So when organizations come to you, right, and they come to you with their problem statements, either something's not working or something's working, but there can be more that's done. As a subject matter expert, how do you ensure that, your organizations are making the most of intelligent automation? How do you help them to prioritize, whether they're picking the right problem statement, whether they're picking the right business, simply among all the problems that they've come with, what's the right way to begin and adopt this journey?
Yeah, I think one of the patterns I've noticed, right, in 30 years of being in the industry is technology evolves at a rapid pace, but the adoption of technology within an enterprise is typically 5 to 6 years behind, right? For example, you know this technology works, but for you to implement it in an enterprise, a lot of things have to come together, right? You need to pick the right use case. You need to be able to pick the right cost component. You need to pick the right combination of technologies, and then put them together to solve a business problem, right? And this is no different when it comes to, automation or intelligent automation. So there are a few things that have to fall in place. Number one, a strategic view to why we are doing automation, right? I mean, you can have a hammer and start looking for nails, but why are we doing automation? What is the value that we want to derive out of this? Is it increased efficiency? Is it employee satisfaction? Is it better customer experience? And if so, what are the dimensions of that, right? I mean, is it like 20% reduction in cost with 5% increase in NPS? You start looking at those as a starting point, just to understand where you want to go. The second is, right, what are the problems you want to solve? And in general, given the speed at which you can implement automation, if you're trying to solve problems that have, that don't exist on a line beyond 6 months, you don't look at it. In other words, if you can solve a problem at source in the form of, IT systems architecture, in the form of an ETL or a database or a transformation, then you push it to this source rather than fix for the symptom, right? So what are the problems you choose? The third is that I've seen this tendency with customers and enterprises to look at either the most complex problem to start off with, or look at the simplest problem as a POC. But the truth is somewhere in between, right? So how do you define, and typically what we use is a lean startup methodology based on what Eric Ries has laid out, right? Can you do a growth versus value hypothesis? Can you understand what should be your minimum viable product? Even in the case of automation, if it's not the product development, can you identify those business processes that can help you understand proof points, but also sets up a base for guardrails, a center of excellence that can help you rinse and repeat? So simply put, choose processes that can help you drive the outcomes that you want directionally, if not entirely, and create foundational structures that help you rinse and repeat at a greater speed than the way you did the first one. Those are critical. Now, amongst all of this, right, there's another hidden piece. Most of the enterprises start off on automation journey because they have one tool partner. They've selected a platform. Oh my God, we figured this out. It typically doesn't work that way, right? Because the ability to put in, it could be an RPA platform on one side. It could be a document ingestion platform on the other. It could be an analytics platform. But the ability to understand what are the technology components needed. And as a phase one, I probably just use RPA, but I can add more intelligence to it in the form of doc processing. I can add more intelligence to it in the form of analytics. Getting that view so that you're maturing in your automation journey and delivering incremental value. Choice of technology is very critical as well as you do this.
It's interesting because I would assume that a lot of people think what's new and in and coolest is the choice of technology. But what you're saying is that depending on what problem statement and what outcome you want to drive, your combination of technology, you may actually pick up something that was supposedly, in vogue 3 years back, but that's what's going to work for you. And that's important.
Yeah. And I think sometimes it's about, the latest technology. Sometimes it's about what already exists, right, and has been proven. I mean, if you take a look at the Gartner hype cycle for technologies, some of technologies that are at the peak of inflated expectations are not the ones that actually deliver value today. Doesn't mean you ignore them. You pick the right combination for your purpose. That is key.
Right? I think you make a great point, because a lot of people are very, very driven by me. I just need to get AI done. I just need to get this done without really understanding the context. You also make a very important point, and that point is about deciding on your or setting those goals and benchmarks that you want to achieve. Because for a lot of people, at least not very mature organization, while they may have a big goal at an organization level, at a process level, they may not have thought through it with that level of detail as to when I break it down, where does that stand? And not having that clarity can probably lead you astray, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, spot on, Sukanya. I think, for a mid-sized mortgage banker, what we tried to do is they were embarking on this journey, right? And they knew they wanted a certain amount of savings, and they had identified a bunch of processes, right? Potential processes. But we went in, the thinking was, hey guys, can you automate these 3 processes and we'll go. But the way we restructured the thought processes to say, we figure out what are the apt processes to take within those that are of medium complexity, but also helps us validate the hypothesis that these 3 technologies together will solve the problem. But as we did that, we also set up the COE in parallel. So there was an ability for them to not just automate 3 processes to validate proof and deliver the value, but also establish a structured approach to how they will prioritize, right? How they will figure out what goes in next into the funnel and how the benefits are realized. Right? That's key.
Great points. I think when we are at, the point of customers and how to kind of help them through, how do you guys help organizations with their internal change management to be able to make these new initiatives or the automation journey a success? Because there is a significant change in user habits as well as the way process gets done for many people.
Yeah, in fact, the big elephant in the room, right, is how do we manage this change? Because I give you 3 dimensions to the way we think about change, right? Number 1 is you have about 10 people doing a process today, hypothetically, right? I mean, in the new age world, after you automate, you're probably going to have a couple of bots and then maybe 5 people manage or 4 people manage exceptions. The key is the first change on the ground is the 4 people are going to do a nature of work very different than what they did before automation, right? So first change management is, understanding how it impacts the people that run the process today, right? The second piece is, right, at an organizational level, automation, I've seen in my experience, requires a disproportionate amount of focus from the leadership, right? Because the potential is very high, but it also means that there are a lot of stumbling blocks, whether it is access control. I've been involved in conversations where, we are not able to give an access ID to a bot because a bot mimics a human because the bot doesn't have a social security number, right? I mean, you want to give access to somebody, that's the way their HR systems are set up, right?
Correct.
So it seems very simple, but it's critical in the journey, right? So how do you educate the ecosystem on not just the potential from automation, but also what is needed to enable so that it becomes successful? The third piece is, it's often ignored, but, we believe it's an extremely critical part of the puzzle. It's the automation mindset, right? About 24 months back, within Firstsource, we launched something called the Automation League, right? And the Automation League is a citizen developer program. And this does not mean that, the 30,000 Firstsources become automation coders. No. But the idea was, if I really want to impact, my operations organization and want them to think automation first, then they need to understand automation and they need to develop a mindset to say, if I'm doing the same thing 5 times a day, why should I do it? Can a bot do it? Right? So change management from that point of view. So we trained a bunch of people looking at cohorts on, the UiPath Studio X technology, but we also trained them on behavior change, right? The BJ Fogg behavior model says that change in behavior is motivation, ability, and trigger. So motivation, including incentives, ability is training, and the trigger is behavior change in terms of have you learned something today, right? A daily journaling kind of an approach. And that made a huge difference, because then what happens is the 100 people have, the first batch was 100 people. They develop about 116 bots that are in production. Now it's grown to well over 1,000 people that have done this, right? But everybody now starts thinking that this is a tool at my disposal as an automation that I should use to improve my job and improve my experience. So change management is about, we think of change management as program change management and technology change management, but there is a mindset change management that's very critical if you want to make automation a culture in your organization.
So interesting, because, I spoke about your clients, but you also spoke very interestingly about that, saying that change comes from within. So if you don't change that for your own employees, it's not going to be difficult. That's what the employees are going to prompt, right? When they interact with the clients and when they do that. Very, very nicely put. I think we came to, you saying something.
Yeah, sorry. In fact, the reason why this automation league became very critical is because when we talk to clients and when we explain and have a conversation about what is needed within their enterprise, we just don't have theoretical examples, right? We're able to say what we went through and what was the impact and what was the learning. And that actually matters, because you want your experience to be reflected in, the positives that you want to see for your client. And that's why that's critical.
Nice, very nice. I think you came to a very important point, and that was your own people and your talent, right? So it's not an easy talent landscape today. Organizations are going through a lot of change in the profile of the talent that they typically hired. The industry itself, I think the combination of skills that today make for a successful team is very different from what it was 5-6 years back. So how do you guys ensure talent readiness? How are you guys ensuring that the mix of skills that you need to make your team successful, you're being able to put in place?
Yeah, I think it's a very critical component, right? I'll talk about two pieces of the talent, right? One is the actual team that executes on automation, right? And the second is, how do you create this ecosystem of people that utilize automation? Both the types of talent are very critical for success, right? On the first piece, I've noticed that there are multiple strategies of bringing in freshers, training them. Over the last 24 months, we've actually hired a bunch of freshers who have zero technology background, but coming in, and the only way they think about in software engineering or software development is an automation mindset, right? And we've started grooming that from the grounds up. So the only way they think about is why can't I automate everything, right? And what is needed for that. The second is, there's a critical piece of the puzzle in a team construction. Obviously, you have a project manager, you have scrum masters, you have a solution architect, and then you have lead developers and BAQs. The solution architect piece is the most critical piece, if I may call it, in talent development. And the reason for that is, when I spoke about the ability to bring in multiple technologies to solve a problem, that's the solution architecture skill set, right? What can be, we've implemented automation for a very large telecom client, right? The initial ask was to automate, a bunch of processes for about 4,000 agents that interact with customers, right? Someone else had come in and provided an architecture that 4,000 agents, we need 4,000 licenses. Imagine the business case. The business case is out of the door. If you have to implement 4,000 licenses, it's very expensive. Whereas when we came in and our solution architecture team looked at that, we were able to optimize to about 40 licenses, because you break down processes and then you start automating stuff with agent assist methodologies that can offload work to the bots in the background. right? If you don't cultivate the solution architecture ecosystem and continuously train them on what is next, how to bring these technologies together, the entire ROI can go for a toss, right? So we look at the core piece of the puzzle, make them experts, and they are the ones who break down the work to multiple pieces. Then you can have component pieces or componentized work models that can be, done by people that are inexperienced. So guardrails, focus on the most critical talent, work breakdown structure, grounds up training of talent. And when you see all this coming together, the people that come into the team have the confidence that they have a path to grow to become that level, right? That creates the ecosystem of growth. So this is the first piece. The second piece is the people that utilize automation, right? So when people come in and we train people on the ops side who are going to work on this, we train them on how to utilize bots, how to utilize a desktop assistant. So, whether it is using tools like Cresta, right? Whether it is about using tools like Unifor, right? Whether it is our own platform like First Customer Intelligence. These are platforms that prompt and, what is the right answer? What is the right behavior based on AI? Mimicking a best agent behavior. How can people utilize that to get better? So you also have to groom talent on the utilization side so that the value of automation is realized, right? That's what we implement for clients.
Very nice. And how are you seeing the talent landscape change for yourself? Like you did mention there was a lot of youngsters, freshers that have joined who think very differently. So any thoughts on how the talent landscape has itself shifted for you guys in the last few years, and what the new talent that's coming in, what are their expectations?
Obviously it's been a very interesting evolution over the last 3 years or so, right? Specifically in the last 2 years. I think the talent market has sort of stabilized, but it's still not where it has to be. But maybe this is the new normal, right? Where there are opportunities galore and people, it's not compensation, but it's the ability to evolve and the drive that I can get better at a different job. That's what drives people's behavior in terms of what they look for in a specific job. But what has happened is one specific pattern that I've noticed is obviously everybody is very familiar with technology, right? People use all kinds of technology that's integrated with their life, right? But technology adoption within the enterprise, if your ecosystem cannot provide the tools and the environment for this talent to flourish, then you're going to see attrition hit you a lot more. We've seen customers struggle through this, right? So how can you create that ecosystem and provide a plethora of tools for this population to experiment, to learn on the job, and to get better? And how do you create an innovation ecosystem where their ideas are not ignored? That is critical for this talent to flourish, right? Otherwise, you're going to see that, hey, I'm doing the same thing over and over again. There's a regular training that I have to attend. No, those are old days. Can I have training on demand? Can I learn what I want to learn? Can I experiment and see the value? Can you create that ecosystem? That's what this generation wants.
I'll just, close it on a very interesting note, what you spoke about. My friend's 5-year-old son had to talk for 2 minutes on Teacher's Day about his teacher, and he spoke about YouTube. So that is the world that we live in. And he spoke about how he learned so many interesting things from YouTube, which was kind of unimaginable for us to kind of equate a teacher to anything that was inanimate at some point of time, maybe books at best. Thank you so much, Sundara. That was a really interesting conversation. I learned quite a few things, and I think a lot of things that we thought about, we kind of reinforce that even you think about it the same way. Thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day. I hope everybody here enjoyed themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Sukanya. Thank you for the opportunity. This was fun.